Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are in good, my dear friends. Today is 15th January 2020. Day is Wednesday. The first editorial that we are going to talk about is Theological Thicket. It's about 9 judges Supreme Court bench and freedom of religion, right to equality, etc. But before we analyze this editorial, I would like to introduce all of you to our pen drive and tablet courses. They are designed by the best faculties of our nation. They are our paid premium courses, and with the help of our pen drive and tablet courses, there are thousands of students out there. They have cracked various different competitive exams. You can purchase them from StudyIQ.com. To download the PDF of today's lecture, visit my FB page or Telegram channel. Please make sure that you too share this lecture with other students. If you have learned something from today's discussion, if you think that this series is important and if you like it, then please express your feelings with this like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So Theological Thicket, it's about 9 judge Supreme Court bench headed by CJI, that is Chief Justice of India. Now CJI has clearly stated that this bench is not going to limit itself with the Sabrimala temple case, and this is one of the main reasons why it has decided that it will not review this petition on the verdict of Sabrimala temple. Supreme Court is going to focus on bigger things, larger questions like what should be the interplay between freedom of religion under Article 25 and 26 and the right to equality under Article 14. Remember a few days ago we talked about this thing, and I have shared a picture with you as well on that particular lecture. Where remember that picture where people were rolling over that food plates, and it was about purifying lower caste people, and this sort of practices are going on in various different religious institutions. Various different practices. We are going to go through some of them, means as examples, of course. So freedom of religion is something that is given by by our constitution to various different religious institutions under Article 25, 26. But what we find many a times is that this freedom of religion is contrary to a right of equality that is again in our constitution under Article 14. Supreme Court is also going to talk about, or it will focus on other big items like what should be the limit of courts when it comes to deciding what is essential for a particular religion. Many times what we find is that there are a few laws out there, like as I was talking about examples, right? So law on women's entry into mosques and temples, right? It's about equality. Then you have genital mutilation among Dawoodi Bohra community of girls, and entry of Parsi women who marry outside the community into the fire temple. So there are so many practices out there, right? They are, if you look at it from individual point of view, then they are violating human rights. Many times they are violating this fundamental rights of equality. Many times speech as well in various different communities or various different religious institutions, right? They have created their own rules and regulations. But now Supreme Court wants to, decide like what is right, and I think Supreme Court is heading towards you can say guidelines where you have some things, or you can say set norms. If you are following those norms, then things are okay. If your religious practices are not, or are in violation of these norms, then those sort of practices will be termed illegal. Supreme Court has also said that it is not going to indulge in individual facts or individual cases. It's going to, bigger terms, big picture. Supreme Court is focusing on big picture. So it is prudent that Supreme Court, sets a limit on things, and it will be very unwise, right, for Supreme Court and for our nation as well. For like each and every case, every time something is highlighted, then Article 25 and 26 again fresh treaties are it will it is wasting it, or it has wasted a huge amount of time. So it is better that now a 9-judge Supreme Court bench comes out with a proper simple test, a simple norms, easy to understand norms, so that can be followed by each and every religious institution. Back in 1954, there was a 7-judge bench that took a very important decision on this Shirur Mutt case. And from here only we find this autonomy. Religious denominations had the autonomy to decide what religious practices were essential to them. And this 7-judge bench decision has many a times we find that this one is exploited as well for vested interest. Many religious institutions, they have exploited it, or they are, if you look at it from the prism of constitution, from fundamental rights, then we find that this decision is exploited. So this essentiality doctrine will be examined, will be reconsidered, and let's hope that we get a very easy and simple to understand definition of essentiality doctrine. And let's hope that we find a Supreme Court will be able to find and it has a track record. So hopefully things, we can look at it from positive point of view, that now Supreme Court is looking after this thing, then we will find a proper solution on this issue, particularly Article 25, 26 and versus, you can say, Article 14. Many times we find this situation. So let's hope we will find a solution. Now, dear friends, the reason why I have added this picture on your screen is because the second topic is about inflation. Inflation shocker. And yesterday we were talking about inflation on this daily financial news analysis. It has crossed, this inflation has crossed the comfort zone of RBI. And there are a few points here that I will discuss in detail today. So I invite all of you to watch this video of daily financial news analysis that has been taken by me, of course. And today you will find it at 5 p.m. on our StudyIQ channel. So we'll talk about this or important points of this editorial in evening lecture. Now, the second important article, and this one is very important if you look at it from your GS point of view, then infrastructure, urban infrastructure particularly, then you have urban administration, local administration. I'm talking about topics that you find in your mains examination, the syllabus, right? If you go through your syllabus, you will find land reforms, you will find infrastructure, investment models, then you have administration. I already talked about that. Then this Panchayati Raj, as well as decentralization of power, migration, issues associated with migration, then poverty, things India is doing, economic development. So all these points, directly, indirectly, they lead you to one thing, and that is our urban area. And to solve the problems of urban area, we need a new way of managing our urban areas or our mega cities. And here this article is talking about mayors, or this the system in which we have one independent, strong leader at local level, at mega city level, and that is mayors. Now, if you go through some Hollywood movies, you find, like Batman or Dark Knight Rises, there are many films like that. Independence Day is one of the film in which you find a very pivotal role of mayor of that city. Most of the time when you have this sort of movies where something alien is trying to take over your city, then mayor office is shown, and the mayor is taking important decision and things. Now, there are many mayors in the world, or there have been as well, that they have climbed to very important position, like the one that you can see on your screen, Boris Johnson. Do you know that he was mayor of London? And I think 6-7 years ago he was mayor of London, and today he is Prime Minister of UK. So there are many mayors, and as you can see on your screen as well, you can see mayors of various different cities: Prague, Budapest, and other, Warsaw, etc. So Indian metros have been deprived of empowered mayors who can raise efficiency, productivity, and livability of our city. This article starts with Delhi, like it's talking about Arvind Kejriwal, but those sort of things are not important for you. If you want, then you can go through it. It depends on you. But the most important things are the one that you can see on your screen as far as your examination is concerned. Now we have many empowered mayors, examples like New York, Paris, already talked about London, then you have Shanghai. All these cities are doing very well in terms of, if you look at those cities as well, then they look very beautiful. Urban planning is, I would say, thorough. Then they are very clean, transportation, they look beautiful. Our Indian cities, I'm sure you might have observed, right? Some portion, yes, it looks beautiful, like other portion is, it's very filthy, it reflects that lack of modernity in it. Lack of transportation and too much crowd is a big problem in our Indian cities. Population is a thing, but there are ways that you can manage population. There are so many things out there. You might have been in this zigzag queue, right? If this is just a simple thing, zigzag queue, but with the help of this zigzag, you can manage so many people. In a small area, you can fit so many people. So there are so many things that we can do with our urban planning, through which we can manage our traffic and other things. But unfortunately, we don't have this mayor system. Now, mayors in many global cities go on to lead their country, as I have already told you. And in India, mayors have been reduced to obscure ceremonial figures by national parties in India, because there is a direct clash between national or state party and local leader. If we go through economic survey of 2017-18, then we find that a third of the population now lives in urban area. Indians, we are talking about India. And when it comes to GDP, this population, urban area population, produces 3/5 of the GDP. So this big population that is very important for our GDP, for our economic development, right, is not provided with proper infrastructure and proper leadership. And there is absence of single city government in charge as well. Normally, chief minister will look after this, directly. You will find a sort of a centralization within a state as well. You will find that powers are centralized at chief minister level. Low spending on infrastructure is something that is quite visible. And state governments, they get a huge amount of economic benefits from these big cities. But when it comes to decentralization of powers, chief ministers or political parties at central or state level, they are not happy with it, because a charismatic and empowered mayor is going to be a more, you can say, visible figure. He or she can be more famous than chief minister or prime minister, because we are talking about local level. I'm not talking about national level or state level. That particular local level, that person will be more famous than PM or CM. And we have this 74th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992, which is about decentralization of power. We have this 3-tier system where you have center, then you have state, and then you have local level. And the sad thing is, at UN Habitat Conference in Ecuador back in 2016, UN Habitat Conference, Ecuador, Government of India said that we have a very solid 3-tier system. Decentralization of power is, it's quite visible at local level, but this is not, you can say, the truth, right? This is a total lie that government said in this UNHC. Mayors are ceremonial. They don't take decisions at the local level. And as per this 74th Constitutional Amendment of 1992, we have 18 local level functions. On an average, if you go through our cities, then you find that on an average only 9 functions are executed. Others are not visible. Some of them are planning for economic development, social development, regulation of land, construction of buildings, urban planning, public health. So these are the big things that you find in this functions, 18 local functions. Out of them, few are implemented, on an average 9, and on an average 9 is not visible at local level. And there are new devices as well nowadays, devices, or I would say schemes, through which local decision making or local issues or things are taken over by central and state government. For example, smart cities. Now, smart cities are directly supervised by central government and partnered by state government. So local level role is not there at all. And there are a few examples like the Annie, I think her name is Annie Headlock or something. Sorry about the name. But anyway, I'm talking about the mayor of Paris, and she played a very important role in this, climate change. She has created I'm not talking about Paris climate change, but she played a very important role in changing the attitude of the people of Paris, and that is possible because of local leader. We can use mayors for achieving sustainable development goals. Annual survey of India's city systems, that is Essex 2019, that has covered 23 cities and 20 states, has said that it found that 33% of medium and large cities with a provision for directly elected mayors, but none in the mega cities. There is no provision of mayors in mega cities. Tamil Nadu and other states are bad examples of making sure that this mayor system is not taking its or the roots are not there of this mayor system. So there are states, there have been central governments as well that they have ignored this very important aspect of our city area, and that is this mayoral system. Tenure of a mayor is generally 5 years, but most of the time we find that within 2.5 years they have been shown the door. And government departments will feel accountable for urban services and infrastructure only when they have a local leader, empowered local leader. And India's cities needs a new deal, one that is focused on development, and a local leader elected, empowered and accountable mayor can deliver it. So this article is a very important article. Then moving on to chalk and cheese in private versus government schools. Now generally when we compare, or whenever there is a debate regarding private school and government school, then we find that this thing, generally that's what I have heard, and I'm sure you'll be on the same page, that generally speaking, private schools are performing well compared to government schools. Now, there should be some reason behind it. Normally, we say good facilities, then we have, good teachers, etc. These are some of the common things that we all are aware about. But do children who start grade 1 in private schools have a learning advantage? Yes, they do have a learning advantage. The reason is there is a grade 1 curriculum which specifies that children are supposed to be able to identify and read words and simple sentences. This is grade 1 curriculum. If we go through annual status of education report, ASER, then we find that only 21% children in government schools in grade 1 could read words compared to 46.7% in private schools. So there should be something that is working here, right? And a survey was conducted, and the most interesting thing that was observed, or the result, is that age distribution is a big contributor. On an average, private schools, if we go through private schools, then we find that children in private school in grade 1, they are older compared to the ones in public school or government school. So this is one reason. The second is, generally speaking, private school students, they come from relatively affluent background. So because they come from affluent background, what happens is they have, they have good facilities. Generally speaking, their mothers, particularly, they are educated. So when a mother is educated, I mean, of course, both parents, if they are educated, then that's a good thing. But particularly if mother is educated, then she can, look after the child, or when it comes to education or development. Because generally speaking, in our society, it is the mother who looks after this education and other things of a child. So that thing has a big influence. Mother's educational background has a big influence on child's development. National Early Childhood Care and Education Curriculum Framework has ABCDE. It is developing skills related to sequential thinking, predicting patterns, observing, reasoning, problem solving in the preschool stage, etc. Now, private preschools, right, they provide school-based curriculum in preschool itself, and this is one of the main reasons. Age was one reason, then parents' education background, affluent families, money and this sort of thing. So a child is getting what it wants, and it is experiencing many things. as well, good or bad, but child is experiencing exposure is quite, child is traveling from one place to another, then you can argue the same thing for a poor child as well. A poor child could be traveling with his or her mother or father. So there are things, it's a big debate, or we can argue on this thing, but anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that the chances of a child of an affluent family is a bit more. He or she will get more things compared to a child from poor background. So private preschools, they are already providing this school-based curriculum in this nurseries that we find. And this is something that is missing in Anganwadis. So this is one of the main reasons why we find that children in private schools are performing well compared to children from government schools. So this is this is the big problem. And now that we have identified this problem, what we need to do, or the government needs to invest in this preschool Anganwadis, nurseries, right? Government Anganwadis or government nurseries. And there should be a proper curriculum, a sort of standardized curriculum, so that each and every Anganwadi will have a same standard. And this will improve this grade 1 performance of children coming from government schools. So I hope this thing is clear to you. Again, a very important article. Education is a very important topic of your syllabus. This article is a pure political one, so we are not going to go through it. We are going to talk about a regime that chooses its critiques. It's very important, right? It's about freedom of speech as well. Now, NGOs. Now, again, one more thing, that the role of NGO, the contribution of NGO is again part of your syllabus. So 16th November 2019, Central Bureau of Investigation, that is CBI, has raided office of Amnesty International in Bengaluru and Delhi. I have a question for you. Can you give me the name of the city or the headquarter where you find this? Amnesty International's headquarter is located in which city? This is your question number 1. I have one more question for you. Now, why Amnesty International's office was raided? The allegation is that it has violated FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010. Now, FCRA basically regulates this capacity, or I would say it regulates the receipt of funding from sources outside India to NGO working in India. So NGO that is working in India, if it wants to get some funds from abroad, then it has to take permission of government. If government says no, then that is a big no. So this is how FCR works, and there are positive aspects of FCR as well. Many times we find that there are companies out there, there are governments out there, they want to influence the opinion in India, and NGO is one of the way through which they are doing it. So it's not always that all NGOs are innocent. I'm not talking about Amnesty International. I'm giving you a big picture, that it's not that all NGOs are dovish and all NGOs are you can say innocent. Many of them, they have an agenda or propaganda, or they have their targets and goals coming from various different MNCs or communities, or maybe governments as well. So we need FCRA, but there are a few things that we need to change with this FCR and the way things are executed by government. Now, Amnesty International was quite vocal about this human rights abuses in Jammu and Kashmir and Assam, and he said that this is one of the main reasons why we find this sort of raids. Same thing applies with Greenpeace, and I have the second question for you. Can you give me the name of, or the location where you find this? Location in the sense, the name of the city where you find the headquarter of Greenpeace. So these are the two questions. Answers in the comment section, please. Right, July 2019, Lawyers Collective was raided, and in 2019 alone, 1,800 NGOs lost their licenses to receive foreign funding. So this is a matter of concern. Now, NGOs, right, they cannot survive without funding, and they get very limited funding from domestic players. So they need funding from outside, and that is international contributors. NGOs have played a very important role in our society as far as human rights are concerned, public awareness is concerned, like LGBTQ community. has got their rights in our constitution now, right? Supreme Court has delivered a very important decision on LGBTQ community. So all these things have been possible, or this influence or this awareness was created by various different NGOs. There are remote areas out there where we don't find good schools or health facilities, education facilities. There are NGOs, they are providing these things. So NGOs have worked with government shoulder to shoulder, but many a times we find that some of them are, as I told you, right, they have their own vested interest, and this is one of the main reasons why government is also not happy about some NGOs. But this should not be a reason that government puts a curb on all NGOs. Or scrutiny, or you can say a heavy hand, is something that is not healthy for our society. Heavy hand on NGOs. Like most NGOs are neither politically powerful nor have greater financial capacity, so they cannot stand in front of this big MNCs, big companies, not necessarily MNCs, it could be local companies as well. But if a company is having, generally, they have their money, they have their resources, and NGO is all about working on charity and people's, charity. So many times they cannot carry on a very important case in the court because of fees and other expenses. The problem is there is no clear guidance on what constitutes public interest. It's a very broad topic, public interest, and using public interest all the time and cancelling licenses is something that is not good. Greenpeace was accused of stalling India's economic development, but Greenpeace was creating awareness about various different things. If creating awareness is considered as going against government or stalling India's economic development, then that is something that should be rejected. And then we have Article 19.1a and Article 19.1c that provides us with the right to free speech and freedom of association. Now, any democratic country will not progress if you are not listening to your critics, and criticism is important for growth if we take it positively. And criticism as well should be logical. So government should, at least what we can expect from a democratic government is that it should be able to digest this criticism and should not use heavy hand on NGOs. NGOs have played important role, but again I would say that all those NGOs, they are having vested interest. They should be looked after, with a sort of magnifying glass. Moving on to another item, it's about the risk of domino effect. This is going to be the last one on our table. So it's about this area. Now, you know very well what's going on in this part of the world, right? We have discussed this thing, I think, 3 times so far in a week. So not going into the details, but you have this country here called Lebanon, right? Beirut is its capital. So Lebanon is having this Hezbollah. Hezbollah is supported by Iran. So Hezbollah is basically to keep an eye on Israel and to check Israel. And Israel and Iran are again arch enemies. So the things that are going on over here, USA and Iran are, head on head. Then Iraq is also not happy with USA. Then it cannot do anything to USA because of fear of economic sanctions. So there are people out there. Their anti-American feeling it's become stronger because of the events of a recent past. Their sympathy has increased or inclined. They are a bit more, feeling for Iran. And the last thing is, because these big players are fighting with each other, we can see that this Islamic State can resurrect and it will become a big problem. So this is something that this countries should understand, that Islamic State is something that will take maximum advantage of these political issues that are going on here. You have news items on your screen, right? The Supreme Court has rejected curative pleas of 2 Nirbhaya death row convicts. Mr. Trump is likely to visit our country in late February. Kerala government challenges CAA in Supreme Court. Jammu and Kashmir internet links partially restored. Hallmarking is must for gold jewellery. CRZ rules eased for blue flag beaches. NIA is questioning Devinder Singh, who is the DSP who was caught with 2 Hizbul militants. And China has said that it stands by Sri Lanka, good buddy of Sri Lanka. That's what China has said. And Iran nuclear deal, EU is not happy with Iran's behavior. And that's basically everything in today's discussion, dear friends. Thank you very much for sharing this lecture with other students, and thank you very much for your love and support. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all with daily financial news analysis 5 p.m. today evening. Till then, enjoy your studies. God bless you all. Jai Hind.